adopt statistical modeling approaches to understand two dominant contrasting theories of network-mediated social selection and social influence. So social selection occurs when people select or form relationships with others based on attributes they possess, while social influence occurs when individuals actually embedded in these relationships in turn affect neighbors in their structural proximity. So our study context is a longitudinal human-to-human interaction data, which contains self-reported friendship from a residential living community in North America from about 131 people. There are demographic information that has been collected via weekly and monthly surveys over a period of 1 year. And this includes personality, the big 5 personality traits, moods of people, daily moods, daily eating habits and activities. And also there is sensor data which was collected at 6 minutes granularity over a period of 1 year. So this contains calls, SMS, and Bluetooth. So the goal in this project is to understand what social rules govern these friendship dynamics in the community, and how these friendship dynamics or the social structure in turn affects people's behavior. So we hope to study the interplay between social rules and friendship dynamics as a function of 3 effects. Firstly, effects that are internal to the network, which is the structural effect. Secondly, the effects that are external to the network, that is the attributes of the actors. And thirdly, dyadic covariates, which look into the presence of multiple ties between actors. But because humans are intentional beings with multiple motivations and multiple expressions of social action, so having a representation or a model that can capture these different social processes simultaneously is important. And therefore, for structural effects, we try to model reciprocity, which is the fundamental unit of human exchange. We try to capture triangulation effects, which indicates the propensity of humans to operate in small group-like structures. For the attribute-based effects, we include the sender, receiver, and homophily effects. So the sender effect says that do people who have same attributes send more friendship connections to others? The homophily effect says that is there a tendency for people with similar attributes to be connected to each other? And finally, for the dyadic covariates, we include the entrainment and exchange effects. Our experimental methodology is Sinha, where the basic idea is, it involves 3 steps. Firstly, simulation, where we simulate a sequence of n graphs through MC-MC sampling, specifically the Metropolitan-Hastings algorithm. And in the estimation step, we choose which of these parameter values are most likely to have generated the observed graph. And this is done via the stochastic approximation algorithm of Robbins-Monroe. And finally, when the estimation converges, we check in the goodness of fit how well do the observed graph statistics align with the statistics for the simulated graphs. So basically, we are trying to see how well is the model capturing features that were not explicitly modeled. And more concretely, the MLE step works by first getting an average probability of the sampling graphs, updating parameters in the optimization step, and then centering the observed graph in the probability distribution of the simulated graphs. And finally, checking for convergence, which is very similar to the effect size in learning sciences. So coming to the results. So firstly, we look at the endogenous structural effects, and we find that people tend to form more reciprocal ties in this community, and there is tendency for formation of small group structures, but these group structures tend to cluster together in denser regions of the graph. They're not homogeneously distributed across the graph. And also we find that the triads, they tend to get closed unidirectionally. So if I is a friend of J, J is a friend of H, it's more likely that only I reports H as a friend and not vice versa. For the big 5 personality traits that we model, we find that extroverts self-report themselves as more socially active, which is kind of intuitive. So they send and receive more friendship connections. Thirdly, we look at the demographics, and we find that males self-report more friends in the community than females. And also we find that people of the same race, people who have same levels of involvement in the community, and people who have similar number of children, they tend to self-report each other as friends. So for instance, for an example, this is a picture showing the homophily effect for race, where we can see different clusters of different races, and there is a strong tendency for homophily. Fourthly, we look at the dyadic covariates, that is the Bluetooth call log and the SMS network, and we find that there is a significant positive estimate for entrainment, while a negative estimate for exchange. So this means that if I is in close physical proximity to node J, it's more likely that I reports J as a friend in the friendship network, but not vice versa. And a similar pattern holds for the call log network, but there's no significant effect for the SMS network. And finally, we look at eating habits. This is the final social influence effects. And you find that the more your friends eat grains and vegetables, the more likely you are to adopt these eating habits. But this effect is not significant for meat and seafood and desserts and stuff like that, which not everyone might prefer. And interestingly, we also find that the more your friends report healthy eating, the less likely you are to report the same. So the perception of what is healthy might be different for different people, and that explains the negative effect for healthy eating. And when we look at both selection and influence together, we find that the effects are more prominent for social selection for the consumption of fruits and vegetables in the community. So people who eat fruits and vegetables, they tend to form, they tend to be friends with each other. So these are our results. And so in summary, we basically studied what are the rules that govern social interaction and the structural behavior of people, of the individuals in the community. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome.